Welcome in once again. It's that time to take the plunge for the Duval dive. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Jaguar Report, and my happy dancing friend whenever it comes to the Jaguars championship song, the champion himself, Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country. Welcome in, my friend. I'm glad to see that you aren't in the fetal position after this past Sunday's game. But then again, I can argue it could have gone a lot worse considering all the injuries. Losing by a single score by a team that one could argue is playing about as hot as one can imagine for being quarterbacked by one Joe Flacco in the Cleveland Browns. Listen, we said it on this show. I've been saying it throughout the season, and I don't ever remember hear you arguing that the Cleveland Browns are, in fact, the most underrated defense in the NFL. I think we saw an element of that. But, Travis, how much do you feel like it was more the Jags shooting themselves in the foot than it was the Cleveland Browns winning the game last week?
Oh, absolutely. I think this was probably 90% the Jags just shooting themselves in the foot. Like
90?
I'm
Okay.
I'm not saying I would love to give the Browns credit, but the fact is that out of the 6 to 7 key plays in the game that I'm thinking about right now in my head, I believe one of them was truly a good play. Like a legitimate, like they made a play, they get paid to chalk it up to the game kind of situation. The rest of it, I feel like the Jaguars just, if I could curse, I would say exactly how I feel. But it is they did something that was very poopy on the field. We'll just leave it at that.
Well, and there were struggles on both sides of the ball. I know you've been on Twitter, parading around in true Travis D. Holmes style. See what I did there with the Twitter handle and all that. But yeah, you and I have actually engaged out there on the socials about certain mistakes the offense has made. Defensively, I've heard it debated whether the Titans game or this game was worse. Somebody throws out the 49ers game. I think that was less about the defense being bad as much as it was just overwhelmed, A, by a very talented offense, and B, a lot of red zone mistakes and turnovers with the Niners too. So I would put that in third place as far as defensive failures personally. And also, not allowing a fullback to score on a kickoff return for a touchdown. Also a reason why I think the Texans' performance might be worse than the Niners one. But anyways, speaking of defensive performance here, you have a clip here, very adequately worded, 3 plays to ruin a day. I think, and then, having looked through it here in planning for today's episode, I think these were apt examples here. So let's do a little bit of show, not tell with my guy, Travis, walking through the 3 plays that ruin a day for the defense.
So yeah, and this is a situation where you have a blitz that's going on, but one of these 2 players, if not both of them, blew the coverage between Rayshawn Jenkins and Devin Lloyd. Neither one of them ends up picking up Njoku, who's basically running by himself, and you just don't see this in today's NFL. Nevertheless, we have a secondary situation. Another coverage bust, but this time it's by Foye, and he's beating himself up. You can tell because he's reading this as a play action fake, and he is 5 yards out of his zone, and there's just no one home. Missed tackle by Cisco, and again, Njoku's in the touchdown dancing. And finally, we have a banjo call, which is a trips check when you're playing man-to-man coverage by Darius Williams. He doesn't get the check, or doesn't give the check, I should say, and ends up guarding the same person that Jenkins is guarding, and is off to the races. Again, one of these things is one thing, but to have both of them happen, or all 3 of them, I should say, in the same game is wild. You don't see that in today's NFL, where you're having guys 20 to 30 yards wide open on multiple times. The defense actually had a really good game outside of those 3 plays, because that's 21 points. But you can't. It doesn't matter how good of a day you had outside of those 3 plays, because those 3 plays lost you the game.
Right, and I know the response is, but Travis, how could you say they had a good game? Joe Flacco had 300 yards. Yeah, I mean, I think we just saw half of them in those 3 damn plays.
That was probably 140 to 150 yards right there in those 3 plays.
Because math. No, I get it. And listen, I'm taking nothing from David Njoku. I think he's a good tight end. You mentioned the nobody's home. He knocked on the door with the stiff arm of Andre Cisco to make sure no one was home as he got into the end zone. But yeah, the 20 or 30, the nothing but green situations that occurred on multiple occasions. I think is what you're alluding to. And
Correct.
listen, man, it's Foye Oluokun himself who has said, and it really struck me. I've heard it say in a locker room weeks ago, at Everbank Stadium. You could probably go to the 3-point conversion YouTube channel, bing, and see the clip in question. He mentions it's a week to week league in the NFL, and you could go from blowing out the Titans to getting crushed by the 49ers, or making a mistake in a single play in what ended up being a single score play. Now, granted, one could argue, I suppose, that the final Jag score was, quote, garbage time. I don't know if I'm there, but I'll say that this, for all the injuries they had, and I know, like, injuries are just an excuse. Everyone's hurting. Not like this. Okay, how many names were on the injury report this week, Travis? I remember you commenting on that on Twitter. It was like 10 or something. It felt.
Man, it was a mass unit. It was more than 10, but it was a mass unit, and that's rough. Like, it really is truly rough. But to the point of some of those contrarians, of some of those pessimists, or whatever you want to call them, there's some of the people who have questions. The Jaguars defense, since losing Campbell, since also losing Trey Herndon, that has been their true crutch, I will say, at this point. Like, before the bye week, the Jaguars, and I think both Gus Lowe for Big Cat Country and John Shipley from the Jaguar Report mentioned this on Thursday. The Jaguars defense EPA was 4th before the bye week, and it's been 27th afterwards. And they've had a crazy amount of explosive plays given up. They just have a lot of coverage busts. And that's been the biggest issue that we've been talking about: communication, because there's a lot of guys who aren't normally on the field. And it's causing other guys who are always on the field to either just not be themselves. They're just playing outside of themselves, just doing too much.
Yeah, I think I think we've alluded to that in some other ways too. I can tell you that after the game at Everbank in Cincinnati, Josh Allen said it was a matter of guys not knowing where they're supposed to be. And I think this was more of that, and to your point, when you're down starters who know it left, right, forward, and backwards, it's because starters get more reps in practice, and rightly so, right? If you're a backup guy coming in, it's one thing to study a book. It's another to have done it for 14 weeks on the biggest stage. And there's really no bigger stage than Monday Night Football. And of course, coming up this weekend, Sunday Night Football in the regular season. So I get all of that part too, but let's not just put all of this on the defense. To your point, I do like Trayvon Walker. He didn't necessarily have a lot of sacks, had a lot of pressure though. Josh Allen did Josh Allen things as well. I would also, as I often do, you and I champion our guy Folorantu Fatukasi, Foley missing portions of that game, or did he miss the whole game? I forget.
No, Fatukasi missed this past game. He missed the half of the game before this.
Yeah, that's why I got confused. Yeah, so him being out for this game certainly going to help stop. Let's say putting him back would help stop Kareem Hunt from providing balance that Joe Flacco took advantage of. Obviously, why do you think there are Jags players biting up so much? Is because the run is an actual threat. If Foley's on the field, I think that's at least a little bit different of an element. But let's not put it all on the defense. There was some offensive stuff. And of course, Trevor Lawrence shocking the world again, starting a game injured, whether or not he should have. Let's just put it this way. Travis may have a "This Team Makes Me Drink" t-shirt, but as much as he's talked about how much he wished Trevor hadn't started, I think he needs a "This Team Makes Me Drink" kimono so he can have a little bigger logo on the back and have something to wear at night as well after his t-shirt's done. Anyways, let's go through. You have a section here. It's a game of inches and turnovers for the offense. I think that's a great way to word it, as you did, Travis. A little bit more of show, don't tell, with the clips for the offensive struggles from the game against Cleveland.
So this is just a situation where the offense actually had a reasonably solid game, but we all know, man, the NFL comes down to a game of inches, and this is an underthrown ball by Trevor. Just got to be honest. Like, again, Zay's pulling away. He should be 2-3 yards in front of the DB, and he has to slow down to get the ball, and it allows the DB to get his hand in there. And then we have the red zone interception where there was, the conversation of whether or not this was on Ridley, whether or not it was on Trevor. And at the time that the ball's thrown, you can tell that Trevor's looking for Ridley right now, right now, right now. And Ridley's not looking. And that's one of those trust situations where he's expecting him to turn around, even though that's not exactly the timing of where he necessarily should. And that's just one of those, hey, look, we're trying to figure each other out situation. This
Right.
one was just objectively just an overthrow. There's no other way to say it. Like, at the time that this ball's gone, the post route is already gone, and he just overthrows it. That's just an arm punt, unfortunately. And then we have the final one where everyone seems to be blaming Calvin Ridley for the play. And unfortunately, at the time that this ball's thrown, no matter how you want to look at it, no matter how you want to slice it, this is a play. The cornerback's running the route, man. There's no other way to look at this as like the cornerback's running the route. Like Ridley does go to the outside, but I've argued with many people that the man's probably expecting the back shoulder fade in this situation. Like the DB obviously has the coverage, and this is 3rd and 1, and he's playing 10 yards off and bailing on the snap of the ball. That seems to me that's a situation where this ball should be coming out now, and the receiver's probably expecting it now. But this goes down to something we talked about before the podcast was that's one of those situations where you're missing Christian Kirk, because he's one of those guys who just happens to always be on the same page with Trevor, even if that's not how the routes drawn up. They just happen to be in sync. And whether it's Zay Jones, whether it's Calvin Ridley, those guys, they just seem to be a little bit off. It's not that they're running the wrong routes. There are technicalities within the route of just, hey, making sure we're on the same page. Look back at me, even if the route says this, because the defense is doing this, and just those practice reps and just being on the same page is just not happening in the way that we would see with those two guys.
No, and I hear where you're coming from there. For me, like, it was definitely a situation. Let's take them one at a time. The one to Zay was just a slightly underthrown ball. I mean, listen, that may work against other defenses,
Right.
but the Browns defense is good. Okay. And that DB still had to make a great play to get in there. I don't want to take anything from it, but yeah, overall, if you're looking at it to the letter of the law, like my dude Travis does, because he enjoys the craft of football, it is an underthrown ball that could have been avoided. I completely agree with that. You mentioned the one where Calvin didn't look up. I mean, listen, the reason why I know that's what happened is in my youth when I was trying to be a tight end in the semi-pro ranks, I had that problem not getting my head around quick enough, and it looked exactly like that's what Calvin did. You mentioned the one with the corner running the route. Yeah, Calvin does go to the right. That's undisputable. Still a trash ball. I don't. Yeah, Trevor put way too much on that. I don't think there's anything to add to that. Maybe Calvin was expecting a back shoulder. That being said, I don't think with the position he was in on with where he had taken the steps in the backfield, and I think he had a little pressure on him with having a high ankle sprain. Because remember, and I think this, if nothing else, Travis, the Duval Devout learned in this game that throwing the football is in fact a full body process, not just about arm and shoulder, right? I think a lot of these nitpicks and misses, though Trevor has, will miss on small details and has in the past, he's broken it down to exact degrees how much footwork matters in his throwing motion in post game. I've watched him do it. My source on on Trevor Lawrence being critical of Trevor Lawrence's footwork is Trevor bleeping Lawrence. So, like, the fact that he has a high ankle sprain is trying to pull these throws off, it was a factor. I know injuries are excuses, but it matters here.
Well, if you watch the last play, the final play, the interception where the cornerback's running the route, that was all arm.
Yeah,
I don't know if you noticed it.
I did.
He throws that sidearm, all arm, no legs.
I was like he got it that far. I'll be honest.
So to be clear, like, yes, Trevor could have been better, and also yes, it's okay to be critical of Trevor. I know he's the golden-haired, prince that was promised. And even
Nick right in this Humpy.
Yeah, prince that was promised. And yes, man, the prince ain't the king though, and even the prince can make mistakes, and we got to be honest about that. And we can say that, and that's okay. But one day he'll be the king. But until that time, it's okay to say, hey, man, that might have been his fault. And maybe 2 out of the 3 of these plays were his fault and not 1 out of 3, like we're all talking about.
Yeah, I'm gonna write this down. 1526. Prince, not the king. Yeah, listen, this is right in the ilk of my the article of why it's not time to panic for the Duval devout that you'll see in the Jaguar report if you haven't yet. Bing! Right on cue. Thank you with the point. That was a nice touch there. For those who are listening to the pod, Travis Holmes is getting in on it. This is called chemistry. He puts the finger out as I say bing. I'm not even looking at him. And anyways, so no, and listen, the whole reason I know about the injury report is the work that Travis does with Big Cat Country. Bing! So let's not act like there's not some reciprocation of the bing. Wow. There's today's nerdy phrase for the day. Anyways, speaking of nerdiness, let's go ahead and dig down deep here into what we have coming up as the Jags. I think the most difficult remaining game on the schedule is going to be, I think, here on Sunday night against the Ravens. I will be there at Everbank Stadium for the penultimate home game of the regular season. Penultimate means next to last for those who don't know.
No, I mean, I appreciate that SAT word of the day. Thank you.
So I said we get nerdy up in this humpy bumpy. Anyways, with the Ravens, I mean, obviously the biggest threat offensively is Lamar Demetrius Jackson, just because he can do so much. I will say this, for a team that's designed to stop the run, I don't know that they're necessarily designed to stop a fleet-footed runner, meaning I'm not here to say that Derrick Henry runs the ball better or worse than Lamar Demetrius Jackson. That's not the conversation. I'm saying he runs it differently. If I were to think of an X-Men character when it comes to Derrick Henry running the football, it would in fact be the Juggernaut. I think Lamar Demetrius Jackson is a little bit more Nightcrawler. I'm here. No, I'm not. Ha, ha, So what is unique about the Jags facing a fleet-footed guy at the quarterback position like this? It's not something they get a lot, right?
Well, it's not something, to your point, that it's not something that they get a lot, but they have it over the past 2 years. So I'm going back to last year.
Correct.
Every time, and we talked about this on multiple Duval dives, every time they faced a rushing quarterback, they have struggled. If we go back to the first game against the Colts in this year, they struggled against Anthony Richardson. And it was the same thing last year when they faced Hurts. I mean, he had a rough first quarter, but then after that, he kind of got his feet. There was a lot of turnovers, obviously.
That game is weird. Let's not use that.
It's a trend. It's a trend when it's more than just the one game. They even struggled against the backup quarterback for the New York Jets, and I don't think that guy's in the league anymore. Last season,
it's a Dolphin, I believe.
Last season, like there were a few guys that I'm like, okay, they are really. This seems to just be an issue with running quarterbacks, where for whatever reason, figuring out that RPO handoff they've struggled with. And Lamar is, he's not a running quarterback, he is the running quarterback. Like if we're talking in today's NFL, someone with actual accuracy and can run the ball, true dual threat quarterbacks. Oh, Lamar's that good dude. And the fact that we say his middle name on this show
is Lamar Demetrius Jackson. Yeah,
correct, sir. So that is not the guy you generally want to be facing when you're a team who struggles to stop the run when it's coming from the quarterback position, but also you're a team who's kind of susceptible to give up explosive plays over the past 2 weeks. That's a bad combination, just keeping it 100.
Yeah, no, it's a rough assignment. Foye Oluokun's going to have his day full doing that. But listen, if it comes to linebackers who I think have a better shot than some of his other linebacker brethren, it is Foye. The dude is smart. The dude's an excellent athlete for his size. I mean, he's got a pick 6 this year, for goodness sake. That's not something you see every day from a linebacker.
Right.
Now, granted, that was against the lowly Derek Carr. I say lowly in comparison to Lamar Demetrius Jackson, of course. But, I think there's a lot of challenges there. Their receiver core is currently healthy. Therefore, they are dangerous. I'll give them that credit. Mark Andrews, of course, is an excellent tight end. And their running back core though not perfectly healthy, is healthier than they've been in some time. So this
Well,
isn't.
obviously Andrews is out, but then they still have
Well,
likely, huh?
I didn't catch he was out. So that,
Yeah, Andrews was out. He got it injured. What was it, the week before last or last week? Well, yeah, the week before last. But then they had what was it, Isaiah Likely, and he
Mhm.
ended up having like whatever it was, a touchdown and 60 some odd yards. And nevertheless, it's still he's not Mark Andrews, but he's still a really dang good tight end.
But to your point, yeah, if you got Lamar Demetrius Jackson, it's likely the tight end's going to get involved in the offense. See what I did there, Travis? But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying there too. It's the same concept. I mean, I think the best example in the AFC South would be Andrew Luck and the guy who came out with him his rookie year, whose name is escaping me.
Andrew Luck and the guy who came
Yeah,
out
the
with
tight
him.
end, the tight end that was with them. I had the name and then I lost it.
Oh man, yeah, you got me on that one.
Yeah, but the punchline is he got a lot of yards because he was Andrew Luck's guy, another guy who wasn't necessarily known for being an athlete like Lamar Demetrius Jackson, but was still
Right.
athletic. You know, people couldn't get past his giant beard. They assume he couldn't run a 4.4.
That's fair. No, but again, this is the tough assignment, man. You got a team that scores a lot. I mean, they're fourth in the NFL in points score, but they're also second in the league in points allowed.
What do you see on that defense that makes them so lethal?
Whew. Well, that was actually something that that both Press Taylor and Mike Caldwell on Thursday discussed at their presser. They specifically asked him, "Hey, what is it that makes this team so hard to move the ball against?" And basically, he outlined the fact that they have athletes at every level. They also play a very aggressive style defense with a lot of cover zero, a lot of cover one, and they give you a lot of those overload blitz looks, similar to the New Orleans Saints, and also kind of similar to what the Browns do, in the way that they're uber aggressive. They're gonna bump and run you. They're gonna disrupt you, and by the time those receivers get down the field, the blitz is already on you, whether it's 5, whether it's 7, whatever it may be. So you have very limited time in kind of figuring that out.
Yeah.
And you just all those things, being that extra aggressive group and still being athletic, but the athletes that they actually have on that defense, hey man, that makes it a tough task. And I agree with them.
And if you survive a blitz that's that athletic and they can still cover, that leads to turnovers. I mean, this is an opportunistic defense is what got the Saints their Super Bowl with Drew Brees in that day, right? That group with Darren Sharper and all of that. Like, say what you will about the fact that other than that year, which is a pure anomaly, the Saints were what I used to call a prom date defense, right? Or a prom date teen, rather. They could score at will and wouldn't stop anyone from doing it, except that year. Because their opportunism worked in their favor. They accrued a ton of takeaways. And I'm not here to say that the Ravens defense is bad.
Right.
But also, this ain't T. Sizzle, Ray Lewis, and Ed Reed either. But they're still pretty good at what they do. And I think they've had the advantages of playing some, let's just say, less than talented quarterbacks on their schedule. Granted, they did beat Joey Burr earlier in the year, but he was limited. They haven't played Mitchell Trubisky, but from, let's just say Kenny Pickett isn't developing as fast as Pittsburgh would like, et cetera, et cetera. I'll be curious.
So you're making the argument that this might be the Dallas Cowboys, essentially. I'm not. I'm just confirming what you may or may not be saying, and I'll give you the option to talk through it.
I'm saying there's some elements of that in their wins. I am not taking away from the fact that this is a good football team. On the Student of the Game podcast, bing, I said up front that America is once again forgetting about this team because they're still mentally scarred, from Lamar Demetrius Jackson's injury history, and rightly so, and also the fact that he went to the mat for his contract. Usually quarterbacks who do that see relatively limited success later on.
Okay.
One could cite Patrick Mahomes II currently, for example, but I don't want to talk about Kadarius Toney on this frickin' podcast. Let's line this, my guy. I'm not here to say fool's gold, but I can make the argument that Trevor Lawrence, and by the way, he's not 100% healthy. That's what I'm getting to. Like, listen, half of success in the NFL for any team not just the Ravens. And please, if there are any Ravens fans listening, this is not me throwing any shade or disrespect on the Ravens. Again, I've been preaching their talent, but like I'm looking at the schedule. The best performance they have was or the best quarterback on a roster they have. They faced CJ Stroud in his first game as an NFL player. Then they have injured Joey Burr. Then I believe that's the team that injured Anthony Richardson. Then they have still trying to get it back to Sean Watson. Then they have, Kenny Pickett. Then they have Ryan Tannehill, Jared Goff, whoever the hell was quarterbacking the Cardinals that week, Geno Smith. And then, it goes on. Eventually, you get Jake Browning and then Justin Herbert. One could argue Herbert was the most healthy and talented quarterback they have on their schedule thus far, because then the week after that is John Matthew Stafford. So what are we doing? But that being said, their offense is still amazing.
So they haven't played anyone that was incredible.
At full strength.
Yeah, at the time that they played them, right?
And they still only on Sunday, so...
But meanwhile, the last 2 weeks we played 2 backup quarterbacks and gotten destroyed. So that's what makes this. If you think the Jaguars are playing their best game, this is a different conversation. But I don't think any reasonable Jag fan is going to say I'm expecting their best game, because they haven't shown us that in a while.
And again, that Nash unit gives no one the reason to believe that this is the week it happens.
That's fair.
Frankly, I think the table is set for the best game the Jags have all year is a postseason game at this rate.
And that might be all right. I would love for the Jaguars to again be the team that sneaks up on someone. I think they play the best when that happens. So yes, I'm here for it.
So with all that in mind, I know you're here for it, and we've talked a lot about the Browns and the Ravens here for the upcoming game on Sunday night. But Travis Holmes, what do you expect from the Sunday night outing?
Well, I can tell you what I expect, and I'm gonna no, I'm not. I'm gonna tell you what I hope. There we go. Let's tell you what I hope again, because I'm not generally a hope guy, as you know.
We've seen the T-shirt, Travis.
Yeah. This team does make me drink all the time. But yes,
that's a great mint julep, though. I'll give her that credit.
I hope that Mike Caldwell watched a lot of film over this past week, and I know that he did, of course, in trying to figure out the issues within the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. I hope that he watched a lot of film of the Los Angeles Rams versus the Ravens and saw how Lamar Jackson struggled against the blitz. He had an incredible game. The biggest issue was the fact that the Rams just didn't blitz him on those key downs, because whenever they did, he had a rough go of it. He was 3 of 9 for 26 yards, a sack, and 6 pressures surrendered versus the Rams. If I'm Mike Caldwell, I want to set an NFL record on how often you blitz someone. I want to put the dude on. I want to blitz him 90% of the time and just see what happens. And whatever happens, happens. Because again, it's not going to be as bad as it looked last week with all the busted coverages. So that's what I pray. That's what I hope for the Jaguars. I want to see just blitzing all day. And if you bust the coverage, you bust the coverage. But because I don't think that the Jaguars are going to be the first people to do something and just try it out. Let's just blitz every day of the week. I do believe that the Ravens will be one of those top tier challenges, but I also do see this as a high scoring game. I see the Jaguars offense actually getting some things right, and the final score being 37 Ravens, 30 the Jaguars.
High scoring affair. I like that. No, I think you're right. I will say, it's not that I think you're right. I think you're not wrong. I think that's a very reasonable scenario. I don't know that I have 67 total points, but that's a good take. Here's the thing. I like what you're talking about to blitz the heck out of Lamar. I would add this caveat. Come out blitzing, let him see ghosts, and then sit back later. Right? I think that's how you do it. I mean, obviously, any good defense mixes it up some. Duh. Like if it's 3rd and 20, for God's sake, attack. But let's not be stupid here. Like, if you have that 3rd and 7, let him think something's there when it ain't. Something, so long as he doesn't think to go outside and run, that's a win for the Jags defense and Caldwell for sure. But I'll put it this way. You have 67 total points. I'm a little closer in the 50s there. I think it's
Hey,
going to be and forgive me, 54 is my basketball number, but I have 30 to 24 in my head for some reason. There's going to be some kicks executed by both squads. Both squads have excellent kickers, and I think you'll get some points there with that. I think both defenses struggle to an extent. That being said, I'm only doing that on the basis that I'm expecting both Ezra Cleveland and Walker Little to make returns. If that doesn't happen, please disregard my prediction. Uh,
well, I believe they both are practicing right now. The only people that, well, there were no DNPs for today's practice, or I should say Thursday's practice. We are recording on Thursday night, just an FYI.
Oh, you gave away the illusion. Dang it.
Sorry, but just let the people behind the curtain, just for once. I got you. Normally it is live, but we are pre-recording today. So as of Thursday, the only people that were not full in practice was Tyson Campbell and Andre Cisco. Walker Little and Cleveland were both practicing, and I think they are expected to go. So good call out on that.
Right, for sure. They were limited to practice, and I have my concerns with Andre Cisco missing. I think he's just Cisco missing, I think, is bigger than the two starting quarters missing. That's just my opinion.
Well, at least he was back on the field, and I did write about it on Thursday night on BigCatCountry.com. Both, and it also features the injury updates, and it features the conversations between Mike Caldwell and Press Tails. So take a look.
Yeah, no, that does sound like a good time, Travis. With all that in mind, 30-24 is where I'm at. I know that's a bit of an odd score, but I don't expect this to be a typical game. But these two teams aren't in typical form. That being said, I do also think that the Jags will finish at least with the 10-win mark that I provided, and they're still very capable of getting to 11 wins, as I talk about in my article in Jaguar Report. Bing! Just on the outside chance that they lose this game.
Gotcha.
So, with that in mind, Travis Holmes, tell the world where you can be found.
I can be found on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. I can be found on, you can find my writings covering the Jaguars on BigCatCountry.com, as we've referenced. You can find me here every Friday, 11 a.m., at the Duval Dive, a Jaguars podcast. And you can also find me on the South Florida Tribune's Inside the Pigskin podcast on Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m.
I love it, brother. Listen, always an honor, joy, and privilege to do a show with you, and an honor, joy, and privilege to have you guys aboard. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Threads and Instagram as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with the Jaguar Report. As I said this past Sunday, I just dropped something for you. Bing! So that should be a fun time. I'm going to be trying to write during the week after this game, because let's just put it this way. I know it's in Tampa. It's also Christmas Eve at 4 o'clock. My wife will kill me. So I say all of the above to say, check that out there too, and you'll see something else from me during the week if it all works out there. Of course, you can see my writings as well on the 3-point conversion. I'll be covering the Cure Bowl here on Saturday the 16th. That's taking place at the Bounce House at UCF. Did someone say UCF? I also cover them with the Black and Gold Banneret. Bing! Then the Student of the Game podcast every Wednesday, 8:40 p.m. Eastern. You'll see this guy on there every now and again as a host, or co-host, I should say, helping me pick NFL games. We're due for another one here pretty soon. We might have to find an opportunity for you to come on the SOTG soon enough, Travis Holmes.
Yes, sir.
And we have an upcoming appearance with Sertoba Media. That's right. The struggle is real to be awesome at Sertoba Media. They do that with my friend Drew Willingham on the In and Out Sports Debate Show. Episode, I think it's 102, 103. I don't know. He keeps the numbers track. That's a him thing. But check that out. Sertoba Media YouTube page. We'll be in there. And some of this debating fun. I don't know if America's ready, but you're about to learn today. And hey, listen, just because it's a debate show doesn't mean we won't agree some, Travis. Listen, great football minds think alike. So be prepared for that shock too. But
here for it.
An honor, joy, and privilege to have you guys in to watch or listen to us, depending on how you consumed this particular episode of the Duval Dive. For Big Cat Country's Travis Holmes, I am the Jaguar Report's Kyle Nash, the student of the game. And until next time, everyone, class dismiss.